Welcome back to Real Estate Simplified. Justin, I teased about paying off your mortgage with accessory apartments. First of all, what is an accessory apartment?
It's a secondary suite within a dwelling unit typically, but we're seeing amendments to bylaws now accommodating accessory units and detached structures now.
Okay, now are accessory apartments then different from what's called a garden suite or a granny flat?
Not necessarily. I mean, they're two entities itself, but it still can be secondary to the main use of the building.
Gotcha. So it's just adding additional units to the one property.
Exactly.
Now we've had some recent good news in Toronto. So can you let us know about what municipalities are allowing these accessory apartments in granny flats?
Yeah, absolutely. Previously, it was only laneway suites permitted in Toronto, so a very specific lot could only accommodate these accessory units. But now recently they just passed a bylaw, obviously with some restrictions, but making it a lot easier for homeowners to do secondary suites within garden suites. So totally segregated in your backyard.
Yeah. So, and when we're saying garden suites, it's a separate building. You know, somebody can take like a detached garage, something like that, and just add a residential unit.
And they could do conversions. It's all about getting utilities out there. I would say that's the biggest hurdle for a lot of homeowners. So if they can accommodate that, definitely can be done within the property.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the benefits now of adding in one of these units, because an extra $1,500, $2,000 a month can have a big impact on paying off somebody's mortgage. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, 100%. I think we're seeing like ROIs about 10% for the rental incomes just on the investment to do an accessory structure. So if you're doing a garden suite or if you're doing a basement apartment, we're seeing that hover around like the $2,000 mark to $2,500 for basement suites and closer to the $3,000 mark for garden suites in the municipalities I work in right now. But with the changes to Toronto, we're going to see exponential growth there as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can actually have a basement apartment, so that accessory apartment plus a garden suite. So you're turning, maybe an old bungalow into a triplex. Well, not exactly a triplex, but a 3-unit property.
Exactly, and that's what banks are constituting these as, is more triplex. And we're seeing difficulties obviously with NIMBYism too, obviously not my backyard type. So we're going to see some transitional things with bylaws right now with Toronto. So this is just going to be the first step here.
Yeah, but I think any real estate expert would tell you that inventory and supply is a major challenge right now. So allowing these additional units is going to increase the supply, especially with that more affordable level of housing, and hopefully alleviate to some extent the pressure right now on that upwards pressure on prices.
Yeah, we're hoping, and that's the whole thing with the Ontario government pushing this through is about affordable housing. So.
Yeah, for sure. So what type of properties work best for adding in an accessory apartment or a garden suite? Because let's say maybe somebody's looking to buy a second property and they want to maximize that cash flow.
I would say stay away from the townhome developments. Obviously, it's about access to the backyard as well. So getting a detached or a semi-detached with enough room on the side of the house to accommodate path of travel to the back.
Yeah.
Especially for the construction as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a big fan of those 50s and 60s bungalows because you have that side entrance door and then you usually have a big backyard. Yeah. So if somebody's going to look at a property like that, would you suggest they tackle the basement apartment first, or does it make more sense to do the garden suite out back?
If you have the money, doing both at the same time will definitely save you money. Yeah. But tackling the basement and obviously spending as little money for a higher return right away is going to be the best investment. Yeah. And then tackling that more expensive project in the backyard afterwards. Yeah,
it can be intensive from a capital standpoint. Ballpark figures like adding a granny suite in the back. What does that cost? Thereabouts? Yeah,
a loaded question.
It is.
I've done one personally, and you should be expecting to spend around $200,000 doing a 500 square foot granny suite. The square footage costs kind of get skewed when you go smaller because you still need the necessary utilities to obviously have that apartment. So it is expenses up front, but it's definitely worth it for the ROI.
Yeah, and banks are a big fan of this, and once you put in that capital, you can do a refinance, pull some of that capital out just to help your return on investment. So walk us through the process. So let's say somebody wants to install a garden suite out back. What do they have to do? Like, can they just show up and start building, or is there something they have to do before then?
First, contact a local designer, engineer familiar with zoning bylaws to see if your property can even accommodate a garden suite. And then from there, go through the necessary approvals to acquire a permit. And then from there, you're able to start building. But you got to be conscious of utilities, underground servicing, that kind of thing. So prior to even doing the permit stage, I would say identify those utilities and see if it's even possible.
Yeah, for sure. And zoning, if you can avoid applying for minor variances and all that stuff, that definitely streamlines the process and makes things a whole lot easier.
100%, and it won't notify neighbors as well.
Exactly. And so, like, speaking of zoning, like, what are the zoning and code requirements for accessory apartments and garden suites?
There are minimum sizes that you need for accommodating a granny suite. So we're usually seeing around 400 square feet per unit. And with that, zoning obviously plays a factor in it too. Can your lot size accommodate that 450 square foot unit? And most of the time, I would say, like, if you're thinking like a 50 by 100, usually they can typically accommodate granny flats.
Yeah, and that's I really like that lot size, that 60 by 120, 50 by 100.
Yeah.
That's basically a cookie cutter lot that you can just do a lot with. Now, what are some of the mistakes people are making that you're seeing when it comes to adding accessory apartments?
I would say over-investing to their design choices. I mean, we're looking to get ROIs here, so if you're wanting just to streamline that, spend a little less money, still get nice finishes, and hire someone like well-dressed interiors.
To do it, exactly. So, and it's all about understanding your market as well.
Exactly.
So, maybe some markets you don't need to add in that really expensive quartz countertop, whereas another market that may be a standard. So you just have to know exactly the market you're going after.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, we talked about the benefits of garden suites. We talked about some mistakes. Would you say, because you're working with a lot of people to do this kind of stuff, is it doable for just a regular person who wants to acquire a second or third property? Is this a project that they can handle?
Definitely. I think even on a refinance basis too, to acquire property with the potential for a third suite is going to make it easier for a layman's homeowner. Mm-hmm. So if they can do it, I would say for sure go for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and even on the other end of the spectrum, when we get into the larger real estate investors who have a sizable portfolio, adding in that third unit now makes it a lot more attractive from a cash flow perspective, because they have so much equity built up from the past couple of years. Now they can start getting some cash flow coming in.
And that's the demographic I'm primarily working with right now, but trying to inform homeowners that they have the potential to do it as well.
Yeah, 100%. And especially like with anything related to renovations, you have to have that knowledge and education up front, because it's far easier to fix little problems at the start rather than have a big mess of a pile down the road.
100%.
Yeah. Good stuff, Justin. Well, coming up after the break, we'll be talking about some home renovation mistakes and some pretty cool projects. Stay tuned.